What is up, everyone? So today I am super excited to bring you so many animal demonstrations that we are going to be running through from the Drawbox Lesson 5 course. I just completed Lesson 5, and like I said, there were so many animals that I drew and constructed from simple shapes, and I'm excited that not only I get to show you the final drawings from those exercises, but I also get to share with you the process that I went through. And as with all of the Drawbox lessons so far, one thing that I have consistently found is that in the beginning, it is a little bit, scary. But as you go along, it gets easier and easier, and finally at the end, you're enjoying it. Probably a little bit worn out, but also enjoying it. So I'm going to be jumping in just to a few of the exercises prior to me starting the demonstrations that I got to record, because there were some that I got to prior to the recording, and even then I still have 30 demonstrations to show you that are time-lapsed. So the first thing in Drawbox is getting used to the objects and thinking of them in not just 2D objects that you're putting on a page, but trying to convince yourself that they are actually 3D objects. And so our first exercise were these sausage shapes lumped onto each other and trying to be convincing that they were actually 3D, right? So this first one turned out pretty good, really liked it. Second one was not as good as I wanted it to be, but still turned out okay, so pretty happy with those. And then we jumped into animal demonstrations. So all of the demonstrations that I will be going through here were actually pre-done by the person leading out the Drawbox course, and I was following along with his demonstrations. And again, I really think that this is so important for improvement. The thing that you will see over and over again in terms of constructing these from the simple shapes is that there will be an abdomen, a head, and a pelvic bone that will then be sausaged together in some way, and you begin adding on additional shapes for all of the limbs that you have, and adding a tail, appropriate ears, and so forth. So you will see a lot of that consistency, and so the practice of going through these initial drawings kind of set me up for the work that I would be doing when I jump off on my own, doing my own constructions. This was a tiger head here that I really liked how it turned out. He included some of the tiger marks, and so we're going through how you do the animal constructions, but also the animal heads, which are pretty important. Here we have a weasel, which turned out pretty good. One of the interesting things, and why I am especially excited about sharing the time-lapse videos with you, because a lot of the times you see these final drawings and they look super cool. Well, at least, all right. I think some of them are super cool. You will see some weird ones in here where things kind of went off the rail a little bit, but it doesn't look that way when you're going through it, right? It doesn't always look that way. And so I'm excited that I will get to share some of the parts that are not so pretty before you start adding on the line weight. And so you get into the idea that you don't have to be overly careful with your construction lines. As you notice here, my ovals that I'm putting down, there are like multiple lines, so they're not completely all perfect. But in the end, once you put down the line weight, it really comes together. Even with the oddities, right? Even with the oddities. So here was a rat running. This one, not so good, and I think we're gonna collide into a few here that turned out a little bit more interesting. I mean, look at this donkey. Don't worry, it gets better. It gets better, guys. Oh, please stick with me. So in a short moment here, we'll be jumping into the time-lapse demonstration, but there's, again, just showing you that it's a process, right? It's a process. Some of them will turn out well, some not so well. And one of the things that they pointed out is that a lot of times we get caught up in putting down these construction lines. We feel afraid that it will overpower the drawing. And in some cases, it's pretty tough. Had to put down a lot of line weight to make the actual bear stand out from those construction lines. But in the end, it's okay. These are exercises and you progress. Turned out to be a little bit of a cartoon of a bear. You may like it. It's cute. I don't know. But definitely not exactly how it should have turned out in the long run. Here is one. I really liked how this one turned out, especially the horns. When I got this one down, it just confirmed me. I really need to get the demonstrations recorded so that I can show you all, because again, looking at these final products doesn't tell the entire story of how it looked going through the process here. So we're going to be diving into those together. What is going on here? Oh my goodness. Let's not talk about that one. All right, so one of the things I struggled with in these demonstrations throughout these drawings with the heavy fine liner pen that we're using for the course is fur texture. So this was a demonstration as well, and I kind of copied the patterns that I was seeing being used the best I could. One thing, it is easy to do that when you're looking at a picture that you're kind of copying the design from. It is a different thing when you're trying to apply it to an animal. And at this point here with this raccoon is where I finally got the first demonstration recorded. We have 30 animal demonstrations, constructions from the ground up to go through time-lapse. And so we're gonna jump right into that and begin talking about this. All right, so now we are jumping in. These first three drawings are still ones that were demonstrated out for me, beginning with this raccoon. And so in my mind, these were a little bit easier, again, because all of the construction steps were laid out. Yes, there were animals that you could look at as well to see how they were pulling their construction from the actual animal. But again, it was still simpler because, of course, they showed you do this first, put the circles here, draw this line, add this line weight. And so I do think that these ones turned out pretty okay. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Oxen type gazelle animal. It turned out okay, but it did look a little bit weird, a little long in the legs, but it was still turning out pretty good. You see me putting down those hatch lines to push the back legs back, and yeah, not too bad. This one here was an elephant. I was really excited to do this elephant actually because it looked pretty cool on the image. It had quite a few steps on it. You see me adding in a lot of bulk to that elephant to get it all up to scratch. But when it really comes alive is in this last stage where you're putting on the line weight and really making sure that you have your design set like you wanted to. And you would be surprised how in the end it all comes together. All right, now we're jumping into my specific assignments where I only have the reference of the actual animal in front of me. At this point, I was super nervous, as I normally am when I am starting the lesson, starting the assignments where I have to go on my own. But as you see it, as you go along, it it turns out okay. They start off with birds, which are a little bit easier, and as you go through the course, you would be surprised how all the work you've been putting in adds up and pays off, right? So at some point, you just have to trust the system, trust that the course is set up with the with with you in mind, right? With you in mind as a beginner to take you from where you are to where you need to be. Just focus, settle down, and do what you need to do. Take your time, get it done, right? I really enjoyed this page as well. That duck on the left was actually really fun to draw. I really liked how it turned out. And what I really tried to do in this is to really get a variety of different postures, poses for all of the different animals, just to keep me interested. And here we're jumping into the horses and deer. I think this section has one of my favorite pages from this entire set of demonstrations that you'll be seeing in this video. Not this page, but I will let you know when it comes up, but you will see it. All right, so we're into horses, trying to find quite a few poses. As I talked about, you will see the common start. You have the head, the abdomen, the pelvic, and then you start adding on the additional shapes as you go along. One of the main things that I found that really sets the animals apart, especially between horses and deers and animals that look similar, is really the shape of their mouth parts, right? That between the shape of their mouth and their ears really tend to begin to set them apart from the other animals. But drawing the horses and deers, it was pretty enjoyable for me. This page was really cool. All right, so we go on now to a few deer, and you will see, again, you'll see this over and over again, that construction is, after a while, it kind of starts getting drilled into you, and it goes well. The other thing that you will notice as we progress through all of these demonstrations is the fact that as I progress on, I don't know if this is just a me thing, but as I progress on, and I've seen this in a lot of the other Drawbox lessons that I've completed so far as well, I tend to take longer as I go along, and it's really due to adding in more detail, trying to make sure that I'm keeping the quality up. What really happens is that I do some drawings and I go, wow, I really like how those turned out. And then a little bit of, I guess, fear kind of kicks in, trying to make sure that I keep up the standard of what I have done previously. So yeah, you'll see a little bit more detail, a little bit more texture coming in, which is something that the Drawbox course itself also recommends, that you don't start off with a whole lot of texture on your animals during the first ones, and then as you progress through the assignments, they allow you to add more texture as you go along, now that you have a better understanding of the basics. This page here is one of my favorites. I just love how the face of this deer turned out on the left. I think it's just super cool. And then this deer, this was the one from the intro, and I really like how it turned out. I thought I would start out with it. There are some drawings later on with a lot more detail that are also pretty cool, but something about the simplicity of these ones and just how the shapes look I really enjoyed. Okay, so we're back to another page of horses here. Again, trying to jump into a few other poses. As you will see here, we have one where it's supposed to be kind of like a trot, and then the other one will be an image of a horse jumping at likely an equestrian show. There you see me. You see me covering up the hatching that I put down under the neck of the horse there, and a part of this as well is me experimenting, which is a tricky thing to say and do when you have a 0.5 fine liner dropping ink on the page. It's a little bit daunting to experiment, but what happens is after you have gotten through quite a few of them and you start to realize that it's going to be okay, you can do more experimenting. All right, so now we're going on to cats and dogs. I must say this is where I encountered my challenge with fur. So these first two images with cats, even though I think they turned out rather okay, just the fur on them was really challenging. But again, I still like them. I mean they look like cats. They do look like cats. And here's going to be another page of cats. You see a little bit more dynamism in the poses. After the first few animals that I did from just side views, I really tried to, for the most part, stay away from just the straight side poses, because as I pointed out with most of the animals just starting out with the head, torso, and pelvic bone, if you draw everything from the side, it gets really repetitive. And one of the things I know from Drawer Box, I have to find a way to keep myself interested, right? You have to do it if you're going through this course. You have to find a way to keep yourself interested. And the way I did it was trying to challenge myself with different poses. And I must say, this was also another page that I just really liked how the animals turned out, both of them on the page. Starting to get the fur under control just a bit. Maybe I took these ones to the groomers, but pretty excited about that page. And I think now we're going to be off to a few dogs here. And this was interesting, trying to capture the characteristics that really set cats and dogs apart. Again, I think it comes down a lot to the mouth structure, the ears. Drew a few puppies here that look at those eyelids. It's just oh my goodness. Puppies are cute. I don't need any though, but yes, puppies, they do look cute. And trying to capture some of that cuteness in the pose, and yet keeping it rather simple. As you can see, hardly any texture on these animals. This one, I really tried to go out of the box. Draw box. No, I really tried to go out of the box on this one to try and capture this really dynamic pose here from this dog. This one was interesting for me because the reference itself was pretty long through the abdomen section, and so it is long here as well, but I think it turned out okay in the end. Pretty cool. Okay, so this was a portrait of a dog. Again, me just trying to vary the different images that I was drawing. Decided to do some close-up heads as well. I think this portrait of this dog came out pretty cool as well, and it's really interesting what you can do with just using these simple shapes and construction and then adding on the line weight, and it really comes together in the end. Pretty cool, pretty cool. One of the things that they taught us is not to get over obsessed with accuracy while doing these, because again, you are using these simple shapes which do not match the contours of what you're actually seeing in front of you, but it also helps to simplify and capture the essence of what's going on. I feel as if I'm a professional here. But also it makes it easy to repeat, so you're basically trying to keep in mind what happened before, and it makes it easier if you need to draw it from imagination. Speaking of drawing from imagination, I've been doing some of that, so you will see that in likely the next video. There are some laughers in that one, to be sure. So stay tuned for that one. By the way, if you're watching me through these demos, let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. There were quite a few that I enjoyed. And jumping into this section here is a few misfit creatures that we were allowed to do. As you can see now, the texture really ramping up as I come down to the end of the assignments. And coming on to this strange creature here, so when I watched this back and I noticed how much the page was flipping for me to get those straight lines in the bones for the bat, let me just apologize for that. But there was nothing I could do there. You have to turn the page to be able to throw those straighter lines out. And yeah, so this bat, putting the texture on here, it's not the exact texture from the bat in the reference, but still, after I was done, I thought it was a pretty cool bat. By the way, at the end of this, we had to do 2 hybrid animals. So you will see my attempt at basically a lizard dog, right? And a bat elephant. Whoa, no, I said that wrong. A bat horse, right? Everybody has to do at least one kind of stereotype, in my case, the winged horse, but use the bat wings instead of the regular bird wings. So there you go. But we do have a reptile dog as well in there. So as you can see now, the texture is really going overboard. Basically, me experimenting with a ton of different stuff. At this point, basically had the idea of how to do these constructions and was really just kind of pushing the boundaries, having some fun, trying to keep it interesting for myself, because at this point, you know, it was already just so many animals. I really liked how this lizard that I'm currently drawing turned out. It was super cool for me. I didn't know I would like to draw a lizard that much. And here we go into the hybrids, okay? So so brace yourself for the weirdness that will ensue here as we jump into our reptile dog here. So as you can see, it's basically the head and somewhat torso from the lizard that I did, along with the tail, but the other body structures and limbs basically from the dog. And if I had thought about it, I'd probably put the reptile feet on it as well, which would have probably made it pretty cool. All right, so jumping into this one, which was the bat-winged horse. I like how this turned out. I did look at a reference of a horse for constructing the bottom portion, and also, of course, had a reference of how the wings would be for constructing the wings of the horse. You'll see on that right wing, I actually messed up and put the bottom sections of the wing in where they were not supposed to be. We're using ink, there's no erasing, just continued on as usual. So everyone, if you stuck with me thus far, thank you so much. Let me know which one of these constructions was your favorite. And if you want to support me and give me some inspiration to continue on in my drawing process, please feel free to like, subscribe if you would like to follow me on my journey to see how far I can take this drawing challenge that I've given myself, a new hobby that I picked up. I really want to see how far I can push this and how good I can get. And if you want to follow me on that journey, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will see you next time. Thanks, bye.